So number one, it's an evil act. There are three evil entities in the world right now. Islamic militancy, and that includes Iran, which drove this Hamas attack. All right. Two, Putin's totalitarian regime in Russia. Three, communist China. Those three evil entities are all capable on any day of murdering civilians because they don't care about that. That's very important to keep in mind. So if the United States or Britain or France murders civilians, that's a big deal. Not in the evil countries. Not at all. Don't care. Very important for you to understand that. Now, this conflict has been underway for 2,000 years, and it's never going to end. You can have treaty after treaty after treaty after treaty, not going to end. Certain amount of Arabs are going to hate the Jews, and the Jews are going to be on the defensive, protecting themselves. Okay? That is not going to stop. Now, why the criticism toward Israel? Because Israel does overstep sometimes in its defense. There's no doubt about that. There's a justification for it. Jews in many parts of the world are vilified. Europe to this day, even after the Holocaust, after the Nazis, after all of that, to this day, it's much more difficult to be a Jewish person in Europe than it is in the United States. Much more difficult. Those old anti-Semitic prejudices hold in many quarters. The Jews know that. They had to have a safe place, to use the lexicon of today. Harry Truman, after World War II, provided that safe place, as did Great Britain. That was a civilized thing to do. By doing that, they trampled on the Arabs who were living in Palestine. The Jews came in, took over, ran it the way they wanted to run it. The Arabs were shunted aside. And believe me, there is no love lost between the Palestinian people and the Jews. They hate each other, generally speaking. The United States can't do anything about this other than to help Israel, which is our ally. Trump was a very strong proponent of Israel. Biden is not. You don't believe me? Ask Netanyahu. Okay? Biden is not, nor was Barack Obama. They're not anti-Israel. They're not anti-Semitic, but they weren't at the level of a Trump or a George W. Bush. Now, I'm not going to get into the realpolitik, as they say, of why Israel is important to us, but you need to know that their intelligence agencies, particularly Mossad, are very effective. And they provide the United States a lot of very important information, particularly in hunting down ISIS and Al-Qaeda. The Jews are very, very helpful in that. Okay? Israel also has an atomic weapon, a nuclear bomb. And so the United States has a vested interest, not just humanitarian, but militarily in Israel. And the loons here in the USA who hate Israel are so far out and would put all of us in so much jeopardy, it's almost not even worth considering their opinion at this point. That's how ridiculous it is. So we need Israel to be our ally, and they, of course, need us. So there's a lot of garbage going on, as I mentioned. And once again, I want to reemphasize that Israel does punish the Palestinian people unfairly at times. Okay? Israel is not a benevolent government. It is not. It's a militaristic government designed to protect the Jewish people who live there. That's what it is. You got to understand that. Now, the attack on Israel, according to the Wall Street Journal reporting, which I believe is true, even though I use anonymous sources, the reporting came from Hamas. So Hamas was talking to the Wall Street Journal. The attack was planned in August, and Iran, the Revolutionary Guard, designed the attack. Again, when I was in England and I heard about it, that did not surprise me. There are a number of reasons for the timing of it, nothing to do with the 6 billion hostage money. That money's in Qatar, in a bank. The mullahs haven't gotten it yet. When the mullahs do get it, they'll spend it on whatever they want to spend it on, despite them saying it's all humanitarian. That's a bunch of bull. Once the mullahs have the money in their hands, they'll do whatever they want with the money. And Biden's not going to stop them. But the money is still in the bank. We can stop that. Because if Qatar gives the money to Iran, we can devastate Qatar. So they won't. So you should know that. There's a lot of propaganda floating around. It isn't true. This is not Biden's fault. I know the Republicans are blaming him, but it's not. U.S. intel didn't know about it, right? Israeli intel usually pretty good, but our intel before 9/11, but for 22 years, our intel has been pretty good. We haven't been attacked at that level again. But this caught everybody by surprise. Now you're going to have to figure out why. Why didn't the Israelis get a tip on it? Egypt says it tipped Israel because Gaza is right between Egypt and Israel. And the Egyptians say, we told them. Has to be taken seriously. The next thing is Biden's demeanor. It was not a good look to hold a barbecue on Sunday. There's 11 Americans dead, and there will be more. That's not a good look. Does anybody think that's a good look? And today, we'll run a soundbite from Biden. He's more than an hour late for his address. The man is doddering. He cannot do the job. A barbecue at the White House? That's what you're holding on a Sunday when there's Americans getting blown up over there? And thousands of other people, mostly civilians? You're having a barbecue? And you're the leader of the free world? Come on. I mean, it's beyond any doubt. If America reelects Joe Biden, goodbye. That's the point we're at now in history. Oh, it just makes me sick. So what's going to happen? Well, what won't happen is the United States sending military. Even though Lindsey Graham, the senator from South Carolina, wants us to bomb Iran or some crazy thing like that. Come on, Lindsey. You know? You don't start World War III. You bomb Iran, every Arab in the world is going to be gunning for us, literally. You don't do that. What's the matter with you? Summing up, evil. That's what drives murder and war. Evil. Let's wise up here. We're living in a very dangerous world. We have a weak president. The second worst in our country's history. He didn't do it, but nobody fears him. Nobody. And that's a memo. All right. I didn't even want to run a soundbite from Biden today. That's how meaningless it is, but I'm going to do it anyway. Go.
The brutality of Hamas, his bloodthirstiness brings to mind the worst rampages of ISIS. This is terrorism. But sadly, for the Jewish people, it's not new. This attack has brought to the surface painful memories and the scars left by a millennia of anti-Semitism and genocide of the Jewish people. So in this moment, we must be crystal clear. We stand with Israel. We stand with Israel. And we will make sure Israel has what it needs to take care of its citizens, defend itself, and respond to this attack. There's no justification for terrorism. There's no excuse.
Joining us now, probably the best guest I could have gotten today, and it was luck because we booked him last week before this happened. Geraldo Rivera has been to Israel and the surrounding area scores of times, more than me. He's half Jewish, Rivera is. He's half Puerto Rican, half Jewish. Very interesting combo. And here he is, joining us from Cleveland.
Hey, Bill.
So Where am I going wrong, Geraldo? Where did I say that you didn't agree with?
I didn't find disagreement with anything you said, Bill. I think maybe you could have spent a little more time on the barbarity of the crime inflicted on Israel, what provoked this current round of violence, which you obviously correctly point out has been going on for 2,000 years, certainly since the creation of Israel in 1948. But what happened in this music festival and the surrounding areas in Israel at the end of the High Holy Days, 50 years almost to the day from the Yom Kippur War of 1973, which was my first taste of war in Israel. I covered the 1973 Yom Kippur War and almost everything in between. Been to Gaza many times. There's a discussion to be had about Israel's militaristic government and all the other points you made. But right now, what I focus on are babies being mutilated and women being raped and, people being beheaded, hostages taken. The other, I believe, and I listened with interest to your analysis of the Wall Street Journal investigation that claims that Iran helped plan this. But if so, they helped plan one of the most hideous mass murders, the worst slaughter of Jews since the Holocaust. That has to be given the kind of attention. When is that ever justified?
Okay, let me stop you. Nobody's justified. Nobody can, except the loons, the people that I said are not even worth speaking with. But the network news and the cable news have covered the atrocities. Newspapers, front page. Everybody knows what this is. But you're not surprised that Iran would foster this, Geraldo? You're not surprised? I know you're not.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what I don't know. And I don't know exactly how Iran, this rogue Shiite nation with nuclear aspirations and now the principal troublemaker around the world. I don't know what specific role. How could I? But I do know that Mossad, an intelligence agency I have deep experience with, these agents in Mossad could pinpoint for me during, for instance, the Lebanon War, 1981, 82, 83, Mossad led me to the right guy, the right block in Beirut, and how this vaunted intelligence agency could miss the muster of 1,000.
It's shocking. And the CIA as well, because they're there in force. That has to be explained. Now, I want to advance the story a little bit. So you have the far left progressive movement in the United States, anti-Israel. Now, I'm not going to say they're anti-Semitic personally, but they're anti-Israel. And they always have been. It's a hallmark of this progressive movement. Many American Jews are very liberal, extremely so. Jeffrey Katzenberg is the spear point behind Biden's reelection. How do you process that? Does that offend you that the progressive movement is so anti-Israel?
I think that it's very important to note there are kind of generational aspects to this. But right now on college campuses all across this country, your analysis is spot on. There is an anti-Israel movement that is very troubling. It's somewhat understandable, I believe, given the history of the last 10, 20 years. It is very troubling. Sometimes anti-Semitism and anti-Israel or anti-Zionism get mushed up, get mixed up. People are sometimes expressing hatred of Netanyahu's government in Israel, and they're not anti-Semitic. Other times, anti-Semitism is the motivating. Anti-Semitism is one of the primal characteristics, it seems to me, of Western man. It is very troubling to me. I think that incidents like what had just happened, you saw in London, I'm sure, the protests, anti-Israeli protests in London and many other places. You also saw support for Israel. So what I come down is I say, you can be anti-Zionist, you can be anti-Netanyahu, but don't be anti-Semitic. And sometimes
that's a good point. But they don't know they don't know the difference. I mean, these are ignorant people. In London, Arabs outnumber Jews 10-1. Arabs have taken over 40% of people who live in London are foreign nationals. And I can tell you, I was in Mayfair on Saturday, which is the most exclusive part and the oldest part of London. The Saudis run it. Saudi embassy is there. All the restaurants are Saudi. They run the whole thing. But the hatred is the last question I have for you. This is never going to end. It's 2,000 years in the making. The Arabs and the Jews, okay? A segment of the Arab population, the militants, want to kill the Jews. They just don't want to expel them. They want to kill them, okay? And the Jews, in response to not only that, but the Holocaust and all the other mass murders they faced throughout history, are ultra defensive and aren't going to give anybody any quarter that they feel are a threat. There's no solution here. But the United States has to back, all right, the people who are most important to us, and that is Israel. Last word.
I agree. I add this, not in disagreement, but to supplement it. The Palestinian people have to have long-term, after this is resolved and the perpetrators of this crime punished, they have to have a future. But because what else are you going to do with 2 million people crammed into an area, just twice the size of Washington, D.C.? 2 million people. It's the most densely populated place on earth. That's Gaza. Then you have the West Bank. We must go back to the U.S. stated position of George W. Bush, going back to George H.W. Bush, a two-state solution living side by side. I'm not an idealist. I am a realist. I know that the road to there is fraught with obstacles, but everyone has to know that that's the American position.
And that would, if that were possible, that'd be a solution. It is not. The militants on the Arab side don't.
You're probably right, sadly.
They don't want it. And if you're a Gazan and you speak to that, you're dead. Remember that. All right, Geraldo Rivera, there he is, and we appreciate it. Geraldo, good to see you.
Thank you.